The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Everybody, and welcome to another edition of Leadership Talks, Security Systems News' weekly webcast series. My name is Paul Ragusa. I'm the editor for the publication. I'm very happy to have John Loud, president of Loud Security. Hi, John. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Paul. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and I thought I'd give you a minute first to just tell everyone about Loud Security, and then we'll get into some questions.
Okay, fantastic. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and good morning to those folks on the West Coast. Yes, my name is John Loud. I'm president of Loud Security Systems out of the Atlanta, Georgia market, and I usually try to clarify early on, I was born with the last name Loud. I did not change my name to get involved in the security industry, so the name has kind of worked well in our marketplace, and a lot of our marketing endeavors have been fun, even with our phone number we adopted a few years back of 678 Get Loud, and have fun with the license plate of Get Loud. But the short version of the history of the company, I was a flight attendant with Delta Airlines for 6 years, kind of working on my pilot licenses, and learned about recurring monthly revenue. So I started to explore what that was all about. So I had never worked for another company, never sold a system, never had a system installed in my family or any of my family's members' home. But did the research, and one theme I love to share about, which is what today's talk's all about, and that's R&D. R&D in most marketplaces, research and development, but ours sometimes is about rip off and duplicate, and that's what we can listen and learn from each other to kind of help our business grow and thrive better, because we all have very similar challenges from municipalities, or how do we hire people or train people. Today, we have about 10,000 customers based pretty much metro Atlanta area. We do have customers in about 30 different states. We are 55% on the residential side, 45% on the commercial side. Years ago, we were heavily involved with real estate agents and builders, so all residential. Obviously, we remember back in the old economy, we used to deal with about 40 to 50 custom builders, and I will share with you all, only one builder survived through that entire process. So as you deal with some shifts and changes in your business, which really helped us step back, reevaluate who we are, what we're doing in our marketplace, and what the future of the industry and in our area we can endeavor into, is why we've gotten so much more heavily into the commercial side of it all. So today we work with a lot of the production builders, once again, not as many as the custom, as they've not resuscitated in our marketplace as much. On the commercial side, we deal with full-scale, camera systems, fire systems, access control, Berg system, voice data type wiring, and on the residential space, quite a bit on the new construction, production, as I mentioned, and then obviously conversions and things of that sort. We have a little over 60 employees. We use third-party central station monitoring, UCC, out of San Antonio, Texas. I tell many folks it's tough enough to be excellent 8 to 10 hours a day, never mind how outstanding all those central stations are that have to do it 24 hours a day. But I think, Paul, that's the short synopsis of Loud Security today.
All right, great. Near and dear to your heart, false alarms. It's obviously a big issue in our industry. I know you're very involved in the Sandy Springs ordinance, which kind of really launched a big debate on this. I thought we could start. Can you kind of give us a history of the Sandy Springs ordinance, and then kind of bring us up to date as to where we are? I know that's a lot, but we'll start with the history of it all.
Sure. Yeah, let me do that. Well, as every one of the companies that are online today, and even in the different roles that you may all serve in out there, one thing that I was almost 10 years into my business, and I learned about a SWOT analysis. And for those that have not done that, is a SWOT analysis on your company or your role is what are the strengths of the company or you, what are the weaknesses, what are the opportunities for the company or for you in the roles, and what are the threats. Well, whenever I did that 10 plus years ago now, I realized the biggest threat to our industry or to my business or to my longevity from the alarm industry was really government interference or ordinances. So I got pretty involved with the Georgia Chiefs of Police Association alongside with SEAC, the Security Industry Alarm Coalition, and we kind of partnered up probably now about 13 years ago and adopted a model ordinance, which was taken off, I believe, from Florida and Tennessee's leading role model aspect of what they've done, morphed that with a lot of police chiefs in the state of Georgia. And then with Glenn Mowry's help and Stan Martin's, I've kind of worked close with them for now the last 10 plus years. Any jurisdiction and this is one of the challenges I have for everybody out there, is being involved in your community, to be in tune and don't just let an ordinance pop up and just happen sometimes. Granted, there's no way you'll forever prevent them, but by being engaged in those communities with the chiefs of police and or the political, whether it's the county commissioners or your mayors or all those different aspects, those relationships are vital. So when they do start to consider, because the easy thing in bad economic days are to say, what a wasted resource that we all are. We suck off resources from police or sheriff's department, and we're all getting ourselves to be rich and happy. Well, we realize that's not the scenario in all cases. Community policing is something that police departments talk across America about. And fire systems and burg systems and access systems are a vital part of a consumer's choice to invest to help protect themselves, their loved ones, or their possessions. So that partnership that happens between those two, while they're investing, is something that deters criminals or helps us find criminals to capture them and protect the society or their communities as a whole. But the root of my aspect of, realizing my self-industry preservation or my own.
John, you still there? I lost you. Hello, John. All right, stay tuned, everyone.
Dispatch.
There he is. Yeah, John, we lost you for a second there. It was about 10 seconds, so maybe back up a little bit.
Okay. Well, I was just saying my investment of time, which is my money and effort from investing in SEAC, as well as the time going to these 15 to 25 jurisdictions as they were adopting alarm ordinances. So as we've watched it morph over 10 years, the relationship has been vital to be engaged. I'll give you an example. We'll go to Sandy Springs, and then right into Brookhaven. The Brookhaven new chief of police actually used to be the chief in another jurisdiction that we adopted the model ordinance years ago. So even though the city managers are working very closely together, behind the scenes, Glenn Mowry and many of us have a great relationship with Chief Yorba to try to get him to be open to morphing their ordinance to be more like the model. And the model, again, is something that we as industry folks, the police, have all sat down together to find to be very successful. The numbers for Cobb County, I'll use them as an example, and Atlanta's right behind as far as having outstanding numbers. Cobb County, for example, had 46,000 plus calls of service back in 2008. They enacted their ordinance in 2009, and as of a year ago, they've gone from 46,000 calls of service down to less than 14,000 calls of dispatch on alarm calls. Well, and we all know that we have been installing significantly amount of alarm systems in the Cobb County, which has 740,000 residents in that area. So while the installs are going up, but the quality of the equipment, the installation, the responsibility to the end consumer, whether it's the homeowner or the business folks, to be responsible for their actions and maintenance of the system, has significantly reduced the wasted dispatches. We also passed the enhanced call verification bill in the state of Georgia back in 2013, so that's been successful once the jurisdiction started to enforce that within the alarm industry. So again, that's 2 calls before dispatch. That actually saves all of our monitoring resources also from how things used to be, call the premise, then then dispatch, then call list 1, call list 2. Then by that point, you found somebody to call back to the police to cancel. But let me jump into Sandy Springs here for a minute. So the Sandy Springs situation developed. It was actually about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Got a call from Scott Hightower, president of the State Alarm Association here in Georgia, about this alarm ordinance, and he was not going to be able to attend. I actually was supposed to be emceeing an event that night for a gentleman's 50th business anniversary, and finally realized there was nobody else that's going to be able to go. After reviewing that with Scott and understanding what was in their ordinance, and I will share with you all, there were about 7 really bad things in that ordinance. Got to council. They did not have public comment on the front of this meeting, but I got a city councilman to hear me and be willing to ask the mayor to make an alteration in the agenda, which they were nice to. Mayor Rusty Paul granted me 3 minutes, and my talk was about unintended consequences if they move forward with it, and then he granted me an additional 2 minutes. They unanimously voted to hold off on the ordinance. Okay, then what happened after that was 4 subsequent meetings where Dan Gordon, our past president, SEAC was present, Cry Wolf had representatives coming in, and we worked with the mayor, a few council folks, and the manager and their attorneys and their chief of both fire and police to try to morph the ordinance to what it became as of almost 8-10 months ago. And of course, the only humongously negative impact to us is that they were going to fine alarm owners and dealers and so forth. They were unwilling. It's almost like they had deal fatigue at this point in time, where they had given so much to us and taken so many things out. They were just kind of done, and they were adamant. Here's what their thought is. Their thought is they want 0 false dispatches. I'm going to interject one thing before we go to what that really means. Remember, part of what I'm sharing today, I want you to be thinking about, whether you're Jacob at Strauss Security over in Iowa, or you're down at San Antonio Alarm, or you're out in California. These are things for us to pay attention to each and every one of our communities and not let this jump on us last minute. And those relationships. Let me define what 0 false alarms means to the mayor and the city manager. That means that even if they were having about 8,000 to 9,000 calls of service, and I explained to them, even if we reduced you all the way down to 100 calls of service, I'm going to guess that 90 of those are false. But if we reduced it down to 10 calls of service, 8 or 9 of those are still likely to be false. And in their mind, those are absolutely unacceptable. So we challenged them a few times to say, go to non-dispatch. Well, the reality is they don't want to, for the political clout aspect, to ever go to non-dispatch. So they'd like to put the burden more onto the alarm industry folks, and by trying to find ways for us to not be non-compliant, such as, and if an administrative person missed one fine fee payment, they will go to non-dispatch for the entire company. I'll give you an example. You have 1,000 customers in this jurisdiction, and all of a sudden one thing was missed by an administrative person. They go to non-dispatch for everybody in that jurisdiction. So it
Wow.
kind of forces you. That was their way to try to get to a non-dispatch, but put it onto the backs of the alarm companies. You may have all remembered hearing a big publicity thing they put out. They showed 39 companies that were non-compliant, and they put out big media exposure naming all 39 companies, basically saying these companies are in non-dispatch. So you can imagine the turmoil. Because if you are monitored by one of them, or your business is monitored by one of them, then you've got some concerning issues to know that they just told all the burglars or thieves or whoever wants to come to these yard sign homes or premises, and they've got an opportunity to have non-dispatch. So they held off for a few weeks and tried to give those companies opportunities to pay, and it did dwindle down to only 5 companies that were non-compliant at that point in time. But where we stand right now, as many of you are aware, many companies have come together. There's 30+ companies on conference calls with StanMart and SEAC, and put together a legal fund. Now, this legal fund we're talking to the tune of $300,000+. And staying in tune with Stan, we are significantly underfunded from what the cost of the Georgia attorneys and our national attorneys that have fought things like this out in Arizona and other areas prior. So one thing, if I could ask anybody, whether it's $25, $50, even on a monthly basis, to help SEAC to put that towards the legal funding, because this, ladies and gentlemen, is not a Georgia problem. This is a national problem. Because just as Sandy Springs chief of police and manager have already sat there vowing to every one of us, as they go to IACP, which is the International Association of Chiefs of Police, they are vowed to show that this will succeed, and they will have it to be their life endeavor to have this spread across the United States. I mean, they accept no nos. They say, until you show me this cannot work, which we all realize, until somebody dies and there's a bad situation of publicity, are they going to ever make a change? Obviously, we've got a legal front that is underway, and the filing of the lawsuit occurred. Then we've literally been caught back and forth between appeals, and we're at this point in time, Sandy Springs has asked to throw out the case. We've responded to that, and we're now waiting for a hearing, hopefully before the judge, and if she'll accept oral arguments before the judge, that's one of the next steps to even just keep the case alive. After that, we would basically be trying to ask for a stay so that the ordinance gets put to the shelf for a little bit until the case is heard out all the way through. Both the chief and manager have told me, not legal counsel from Sandy Springs, that they will stretch this for 3 to 5 to 8 years to the best they can. So what do we do in the meantime? Well, one aspect is we're certainly going to deal with some legislative fronts. There was a conference call yesterday dealing with some lobbyist firms that we may engage to help us. I'm aware of, I believe, Florida, Louisiana, California, and I think one other state has had success to basically have a state law passed specifically prohibiting this type of thing. I have met over the last 3 weeks with one state rep person that I know well and one of our senators well to kind of share with them what's going on from that aspect. We've got great partners in our industry from even some of the larger companies with Doug Bassett at Comcast and many others on the list that everybody has been coming to the table to talk on it. And I encourage you guys to get engaged, locally as well as nationally, and stay tuned and see how can you help in some ways. Then let's go on to the third step. So you've got legal battle, you got legislative battle, the next is grassroots. So we just began a grassroots effort this past Tuesday. And I will share in the past, we did have grassroots where we had lots of alarm companies show up at City Hall meetings before the final vote was even done. But as I shared, they were kind of so adamant at that point, they weren't going to hear or listen to anybody else. So this past Tuesday is the first of the next 5 months that we're going to start to ask companies to bring Sandy Citizens subscribers. And we're explaining to them, look, these are your voters, these are your business owners, these are your renters. And the revenues that Sandy Springs has been bringing in, we're getting close to calling their chief of police the new $1 million man for Sandy Springs, because they're on target to probably raise about $1 million in new fines. But they want to say this is not about the money. This is about reduction of dispatch. And if it was really about reduction of dispatch, then we would find means to, sorry about that, we would find means to show them the success that Cobb and the city of Atlanta and many others have had, and they were on a trajectory to do the same thing. So the grassroots stories are going to be things such as Sandy Springs just outsourced a pre-screening of their 911 calls. So if we alarm dispatch for whatever the burglary is, or even if it's a panic button, it doesn't matter. We go through a third-party call center first, and they take the permit number and the address and all that information. Then they forward us to Chatcom, which is their 911 center, and then we go through it again. And usually it's no less than 9 minutes to even complete a dispatch request. So one of our upcoming meetings, we're literally going to have 3 people online, because you can only talk for 3 minutes at a time, and we're going to have them, hand that call over. And I see we're getting close to wrapping up our time here, but the compelling stories that are going to be done over the next several months, and here's my request: if you know somebody in Georgia, or you have customers or other companies that are having the challenges, please have them reach out to me, because we're not looking to have 5 or 50 companies show up. Just having 2 or 3 companies with 2 or 3 customers consistently each and every month. We will be videotaping some of these, because we then want to put them on Facebook to show the Sandy Springs citizens what's going on, and also share with Brookhaven, who is thinking about going down this path. So hopefully that doesn't go that way. But before I continue to ramble too much, Paul, I want to throw back to you. I know we're getting closing time here.
Yeah, we got a couple of minutes left, but I know you mentioned that this is really a national issue. It's not just a Georgia, Atlanta issue. Can you talk about what other companies can do outside of Sandy Springs, for example, to help support this cause and stop this from spreading, like you mentioned?
Well, I'll give you a short few things. One is, feel free to directly reach out to me. Either use that 678 Get Loud phone number and have them patch you through to my cell phone. So 678 Get Loud, or my direct cell is 678-300-8398, and that's even on our website under customer care. My cell is out there for all of our customers, and I will direct you either in many different ways, whether it's number one is let's get with Stan Martin, Glenn Mowry, and that whole team at SEAC, Security Industry Alarm Coalition, and financially, if you can't be involved with in-state or some of those causes, again, whether it's a $50 check or a $500 check, every bit of that is significant to help the entire big picture cause. Second from there certainly is get in tune with your state. Get involved with your state alarm association. Get involved with your local community. Don't just sit there and keep taking from the community and receiving all the customers' help. Get engaged, because I promise you, as a company that has done this, and I don't do it because I'm looking for that business in return, but you'd be amazed at how many folks just come to bring immense amount of business to you because they see you out there working in community involvement. I'm not sitting out there asking all the time.
Yeah, those are all great points. And all right, John, well, thank you for really educating everybody on this issue and raising more awareness for it.
Well, my pleasure, Paul, and be happy to help anybody in any of those jurisdictions outside of even the Atlanta area.
All right, great. Well, that wraps up this week's webcast. Thank you, everyone, and look forward to next week. And take care, everyone.